a Playlyst original.
Welcome to the Pilot Podcast,
where we review the pilot episodes of TV shows to answer your question, should I watch this?
My name is Mitu.
And my name is BJ.
And this week, we're watching the listener-recommended Mind Your Language, originally on ITV and now on Prime Video.
So stay tuned to find out what languages Mitu can speak.
Okay. Until then, also a shout out to our editor, Ben, whose partner is the listener who recommended this show. He did not give us your name, but thank you for listening all the same.
Please enjoy our review of Mind Your Language, this 1977 British sitcom, which is set at an adult education college in London, and it focuses on the class in English as a foreign language taught by Mr. Jeremy Brown, played by Barry Evans, who's teaching a group of enrolled foreigners. So, Mitu, what were your first impressions?
When I read the description and I saw it was made in 1977, I thought, uh-oh. And that uh-oh in many senses was very justified. It is of its time. But there was also some charming and funny wordplay.
Yes, I think the writers definitely had a lot of fun with playing with English, like the word right being a direction and also confirmation, but also playing with accents, like I walk with sheeps versus I work with ships. And I think some of those accent jokes, while clever, don't land as well today.
What about the Italian man's job?
I'm not going to repeat that one.
Some of these jokes were wild. There were some funny ones, like when he introduces himself to Ali, a Muslim student from Pakistan, played by Dino Shafiq. And he goes, I'm brown, which is his name. And Ali was like, oh, no. He's like, you're not brown. I'm brown. And I thought that was funny. And I bet was just like uproariously funny in the 70s.
Yes, that is the type of wordplay that I think is evergreen, where you're playing around with the meaning of English words.
When you said evergreen, I almost corrected you to say ever brown, but then that's just taking the wordplay jokes too far to a place that doesn't make sense. I also just felt more appreciative of comedies today. I think there's a way to do this gag and make it funny and make it a little bit less offensive. I thought a good example of that, the show only got one season, but it was Sunnyside, that show with Cal Penn and Joel Kim Booster. I think that one where he's helping people get their visas was pretty funny, and it's just a group of people from all different backgrounds. In this one, I thought it was interesting where some of the jokes went. So they had this odd beef between a German student and a Japanese student over who makes better cameras and TVs. I think maybe if I were 30 years older, I would get that joke a little bit better. And then there was this whole running gag that I think will just persist through the show between Ali and another student who is a Sikh from India, battling about their religions and their backgrounds.
Interesting tension. And we get hints of what's going to be another issue from the principal, Dolores Courtney, played by Zara Nutley, who said the last class had an issue over sex and women, and that teacher left, and so she wanted a female teacher this time instead of Mr. Brown. And then we meet Danielle, played by Francois Pascal, our French au pair, who has captured the eye of a couple men in the class. And I think that will be something to worry about in future episodes.
I think it'll be funny to see our Italian student Giovanni, played by George Camiller, and our Greek student Maximilian, played by Kevork Malikian, go after her. It's clear they're going to compete over her, as well as maybe Mr. Brown competing over her. He seemed pretty interested. And on Giovanni and Maximilian, I liked their dynamic. I think they're going to be funny together as the show progresses.
Yes, they have a nice, less conflicting tit for tat. They do threaten to punch each other, but it doesn't have any uncomfortable political or religious tension.
No, just two guys being silly.
Yeah.
Just punching.
I also like Juan and Giovanni because we have Juan who is struggling to understand. I think he has the least experience with English in the classroom. And so our Italian student can say things in Italian that's close enough to Spanish to help him follow along.
It also made me think two things. One, I recognize that this joke is facilitating it such that these students are the ridiculous ones and Mr. Brown is the straight man. But these students are actually geniuses because I can't imagine learning a language without my language as a starting point of understanding. If you want to teach me the word for tree in another language, you have to say tree to me and then go tree is this. But instead, he's just making sounds at them that they don't recognize and expecting them to understand, speaking slower and louder, and then they have no frame of reference, but somehow eventually get it. And I think that that is really impressive of these students. The other thing it made me think of is you and I just introduced maybe 6 students as we were chatting about this class. There are even more. We spent the vast majority of this episode simply getting each of their names, jobs, which I thought was odd, and then country of origin.
A lot to pack into one episode. I think they could have benefited from just introducing 3 or 4 at a time, and we slowly learn who's in the class. And going back to what you said about teaching English, we don't see Mr. Brown teach much, and we don't see him teach well.
No.
He doesn't have any pictures. He doesn't have any translations. And in order to teach how to use a verb, he just says the verb in conjugation. And he's lucky that, like you said, a lot of the class have a basic understanding of English so they can kind of run with it.
Even though they're coming to him for that basic understanding of English. So they have to already be beyond the scope of the class to understand what he's saying. I thought that exercise was so hard where he was like, let's all practice to be. And then he switches it. You are. And it's just like, what does that mean? I am a native English speaker. I got confused.
And the tricky thing is he did the old school conjugation of you are for you all are.
Yes.
Which would be very confusing unless you have like a Romance language background and understand what conjugations he's doing in that order.
He needs to see Duo, a very little owl that helps me every night learn a new language.
Every night? Wow.
I do my Duolingo every night. You know, my streak, I actually don't even want to get into it, but it's good.
Hopefully Mr. Brown can get accounts for everyone. He does hand out textbooks, which I think are going to teach the students more than he is. Again,
requiring a base level of knowledge of English or even the English alphabet. We have a point where Jamila, a housewife from India, played by Jamila Ranja, tries to introduce herself to her teacher. She doesn't understand his question. He doesn't understand her. And so she goes to write her name on the board, but she writes it in her own language. And then she was like, you don't understand Urdu? And he's like, no, I don't understand that. And then it's just like, where are we from here? Because I can't imagine trying to learn a language. And there's also no one-to-one, meaning I think about my parents' language. There is no A, B, C, D, E, F, G in their alphabet. So you couldn't even one-to-one it. So if you gave me a textbook and you were like, A is this sound, I don't even have a frame of reference for what A is.
Right.
So that blew my mind too.
And he's dealing with all these different languages that he doesn't understand. And I also thought it was a little mean of Miss Courtney to have Mr. Brown collect their registration fees.
Yes.
Like, shouldn't they have paid before they even came to class?
But also, how are you going to take my money and not teach me? Don't let me get to the end of that class and then ask me for money. I'm not going to give it to you. I won't learn here and I won't pay you money.
I like that some of them paid in their own like national currency.
I liked that too.
This is what I got. Take the yen or take nothing.
And hopefully the exchange rate was in their favor.
He did a little mental math and said they might have made £1 or £2.
I also thought it was odd when one of the students introduces himself and says he's a Sikh. And Mr. Brown said, "Bless you," or something like that. I think he thought he sneezed. And I was like, "Sir, are you prepared to teach people of different cultures if you do not have a basic understanding of different cultures and different religions? Should you be interested in asking people about that?" Which he was.
You brought up a great question. Why did he need more than their names?
And then he didn't even say their names. When Maximilian introduced himself, he was like, "I'll just call you Max." No, you won't.
He got distracted by Danielle.
Yeah. Everybody was distracted by Danielle.
I will say, though, this feels like an old school version of Community, where you mix people from different backgrounds together in that school setting.
Yeah.
And more like adults at different stages in life. It makes me want to see a modern version of this show, because I think this could have been like a Community episode.
That's true. I think you can do this really funny. I think this probably was hilarious in the 70s. I don't want to give away my rating, but I don't think it really hit for me today, 2024. The show I was thinking of was AP Bio.
Yeah.
Which, RIP, what a great show. But I think Community is actually an even closer approximation, because that is adults. And it's adults of lots of different backgrounds versus just a group of really striving kids.
Yeah, this isn't people going for the A+.
No.
These are people who just want to do a little bit better in their day-to-day in London.
Also, a lot of those actors were English.
You got to hire local.
Hire local, but have them speak foreign.
When they auditioned, they said, "What's your nationality?" Ooh, perfect.
Yeah, we'll take it.
Right, can you write a character based on Jamila named Jamila?
Oh, I bet this is one of those shows where they were like really mining the characters for storylines. I think of Grownish. I remember the head writer of that show said that one of the actors, Luca, called something hot. He was like, "Oh, that's hot." And she had never heard that before, which is interesting because I feel like that's a long-standing thing that people would say. But she thought it was so cool. And so she wrote that into the show, where Luca always said, "That's hot." And sometimes the other students would say it too. And she credits the actor for putting her onto that phrase, because while she's writing this show, running this show about college kids, she isn't one. And so she relied on them to give her language, to give her ideas. And I bet that is what this cast did too. I'm sure.
For sure. I feel like that would be the easiest thing for the writers to do.
Yes.
And it worked well. They got 3 seasons of this series, and I think they tried to bring it back in the 80s for one more season.
But we had progressed too far as a society. I'm just kidding. This show would have been on air until like 10 years ago. People would have cracked these jokes truly until very recently.
And with that, how about you tell us your rating of Mind Your Language, originally on ITV and now available on Prime Video?
With love to Ben's partner, I think this is my stop. I don't know that I will watch more episodes of Mind Your Language. I also had to pay $1.99 USD to get this from Amazon Prime. So I also don't think it is worth paying per episode. But again, if you are searching for a show where it's a ragtag group of people coming together in a class and learning, highly recommend AP Bio, highly recommend Community. What about you, Beej?
I appreciate what they were trying to do, and I recognize it is of its time. And so if it was the year 1977 and I was somehow there, I would rate it would watch while folding laundry.
So your rating now requires a spaceship, which you are introducing a new element to our rating system.
Yes, we need to develop time travel, which, as we understand, is not possible.
And what you would do with the magical feat of time travel, you could stop bad things from happening. You could help save the world. You could see the dinosaurs. You could
win the lotto.
You could win the lotto. You could time travel just a couple minutes behind you and come back. But you would watch Mind Your Manners.
while cooking.
Yeah, so you'd also be laboring. Like you'd be
In
cooking
1977.
in 1977. And where in the world are you in 1977 as a black man? You
I
have
gotta
to
be in London to watch the show.
Whoo!
In the UK.
That's something.
I brought you with me, so I'm not alone.
No, I didn't come. I don't want to come.
I know you didn't want to, but here we are in 1977.
Oh, I'd be so mad. Like if you caught me on one of my Saturday naps and I wake up, I'm no longer on my couch. I'm in like a really racist place and time. Oh, I'd be so mad.
I'd bring your couch. Just carry the whole thing.
You'd bring my creature comfort, my comfort from home.
So just keep sitting there.
I would. In hopes I could go back. Be like, you can just go ahead, go back to sleep. See if I can make this go in reverse.
Well, since we know how you feel about being in 1977, let's switch to something a little more positive. Can you share with our listeners what languages you speak?
Yes. What I am practicing on Duolingo every night is German.
And you have experience with German.
That's true. I did. I studied abroad in Berlin.
I was going to say you took it in college.
Oh, I took it in college. And I lived there for a few months.
Which is one of the best ways to learn language. Live amongst it.
Mm-hmm. I went back a few years ago and it really came back. That's what inspired me to get back on my Duolingo game.
So I need to go to Italy.
Yeah. Come ti chiami?
Mi chiamo BJ.
Dove andiamo?
Well, I don't know how to answer that in Italian.
We're going to learn where people can find more episodes of the Pilot Podcast.
I can't say that in Italian.
Okay. Just imagine he did. Just like really picture it. Okay, go Beach.
Just go to our website, thepilotpodcast.com, and you can follow us on all of your favorite podcast platforms.
You can also have a nice, cool limoncello and then follow us on social media at The Pilot Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and X. And you can send us thoughts, feelings, weird dreams, show recommendations, because every other week we do a show recommended by you, our wonderful listeners, at askthepilotpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.
Bye.